chances of this. You're not going to drop bunts on us.
No.
You're going to go right for the boards.
Joe Pemberton,
Yeah.
Kim Swear,
No?
and
I think it's been 20 years now.
Carlton Fisk, and Deion Sanders. These are a couple of pieces. One's a Chicago piece and one's a later in life piece. The first one is called Passing Through the Big Leagues. My first job in the bar business was as the morning cleanup guy at the Fat Black Pussycat on Broadway in Newtown in Chicago, around the block from my house. I got the job because my friend Phil's old man owned a piece of the joint, more than just a bar stool with his name painted on the back. I'd get there at 11 in the morning, and I had two main responsibilities. Three, really, if you count scavenging the floor for joints, bags of pot, packets of cocaine, linty ludes, and money that had fallen into the darkened void. Then, I'd vacuum, wipe down the bar and bottles, stock the cooler, and clean the face prints off the large picture window that overlooked Broadway. And then, when the bar was set, I was ready for my third chore of the day. The chore I performed with nobleness and care. The chore I performed for baseball fans across the land. The Cat was on the first floor of a three-story tenement, and 2 floors above it were Chicago's inner sanctum of decadence. And at 17, I was proud to be the youngest person to possess a key. The 3rd floor was Tommy Connolly's place, the owner of the Cat. Rooms that never saw the light of day, rooms where little girls came to grow up and grow up fast. But it was the 2nd floor for which the Cat was famous in the 60s and the 70s. Down the long railway car hall stood an old wooden phone booth, which I'd enter like a naughty choir boy, and I'd push the back wall of the phone booth open into the spiked vein of decay. The Room, it was called. 20 by 20, bay windows overlooking the street, couch, coffee table, armchairs, wet bar, and flesh. Intertwined like Roman chain, empty bottles of Heineken and Remy Martin, lines of flaky dust on the glass tabletop, half-smoked joints and ashtrays piled high with cigarette butts. First I check out the babes, passed out, legs open, lace garters, miniskirts pushed up like belts around their waist. And then a large breast cupped in a thick-fingered hand, Popeye forearm, and there he was, my third chore of the day, Joe Pepitone. Brooklyn boy, he came to the Cubs from the Yankees where his sweet swing had lofted many a ball into the short porch in right field. Another in a long line of Burrow kids to roam the house that Ruth built, DiMaggio, Berra, Rizzuto. A natural, they said, but the skills were slipping, and I knew why. Joey, I'd whisper, come on, man. Easing his hand off the mound of flesh, it's 12 o'clock, you got a game today. Come on, Peppy, it's a 1:20 start. His eyes would roll. He'd inhale deeply, leather and sandlot like ammonia. Just another stickball game. Hiya, kid. Bubblegum card smile. Who's in today? Mets and Seaver's pitching. Eyes narrow, focusing, blood finding his legs and beat up knees. I can hit him. I can hit that son of a bitch. Sure you can, Peppy. I say, last time through you touched him 3 for 4 and took him long to Waveland Avenue, remember? He lays in that like glory wine. Watches the ball sail out over the left field bleachers, the cheers, the sound of crunching cartilage that only he hears as he circles the bags. Years away from the neighborhood, those bastards saw it on TV and read it in the box scores. Come on, Peppy, I say, helping him up. I'll run you over to the ballpark. And an hour later, 1:20 arrives, and at the Cat we sit under the green-blue glow of WGN. And in the 3rd, Peppy takes a waist-high fastball long, and we listen to Brickhouse call it. That ball is hit. It's back, way back. It's out of here. And at the Cat, we slap 5s, pound the bar. He's one of us. But no, he's more. He plays the land of Gas House, of Murderer's Row, Big Red Machine, the view he's seen will never see. He rounds the bags, running back towards home. But home is hard to find, Joey boy. You got time in prison first to spend. Thank you.
I'll read one more. Down but not out. Maybe the greatest thing about our Sunday pickup softball game was that no matter how lonely or poor or hungover or strung out or fresh out of a mental hospital or jail, or hated by our parents, or stuck on a nowhere job that was breaking our spirit and mind, or no matter how ugly and small and cockroach infested of an apartment we lived in, or how many times we may have tried to kill ourselves, any one of us might still step up to the plate and hit a home run. Anyone who can hit a home run still has a chance to turn their life around. Thank you.
Ted Williams. I got to meet him one day. I wasn't going to read this. It's kind of not very flattering about Ted Williams because I know many people think he was a saint. No? Ted Williams' tongue, as recalled by a former cocktail waitress, Tomato. The waitresses in the coffee shop hated baseball season when all the baseball players stayed there in the swanky hotel where we all worked. Me in the cocktail lounge. They hated how rude they were, what cheapskates, and their filthy mouths. These women, my mother's age, raised to be ladies, even if they did have to work for a living. And they hated Ted Williams the most, who never left more than one thin dime after a king-size breakfast of 10 eggs and a slab of ham, and always snuffed his 20 cigarettes he smoked over 10 pots of free coffee into the leftover hashed brown potatoes and ketchup. What a pig, they always said about him, and told me how he called them all broads or hey tomato. But I didn't care. I'd heard worse, having been a go-go girl 3 years before this cocktail lounge job, and sloshed beer for 3,000 men, and listened to their lies, their fears and lies, before they got so snockered they'd offer me $100 to meet them in the back seat of their car after work. So I went on into the coffee shop, unafraid of Ted Williams, and asked while he lit another cigarette for his autograph for my little boy. And yeah, babe, he gave it to me, to Danny, he wrote. And my son was thrilled. And noble Lady Madonna I imagined myself to be, working 8 days a week in 1969. I never told my son what that champion rod of splendid splinters said to my backside when I walked away. Sorry, Ted Williams. I hope I haven't defamed him here. I'm sure he was a nice guy, except for that day. He must have been the ham. Must have given him some heartburn that day. But here's a fan poem about the great Steve Bilko. I was a big fan of his when I was a little girl, when I thought I was a hermaphrodite for about 4 years. This is called Steve Bilko Taught Me How to Spit, and this is true. In 6th grade, when my little girlfriends all began en masse to unfurl like blossoms and plump pink into woman cake, and I stayed 4'2", weighed 48 pounds, and liked to play baseball instead of kiss boys, they teased me that I was a midget, or maybe even a hermaphrodite. So playing shortstop was the right place for me. Shortstop like I was in time, as I ran in and out of inner and outer field, catching pop flies, stopping line drives, and swinging around to tag the runner, stealing third, and at home on weekends while my workaholic father fixed stuff in his garage, I'd sneak watching the old Pacific Coast League baseball teams on TV, the Los Angeles Angels and Hollywood Stars, learned how to kick my feet into the dust at home plate, wipe some on my bat and swing like Steve Bilko, Southern California's answer in 1951 to Babe Ruth. And I taught myself to spit like Steve Bilko, make it flip in the air before it hit the dirt. And when my team won, I put my fingers in my mouth to whistle so loud it made church bells ring in the next town. Maybe it was good to keep my mind off all that troubling hermaphrodite stuff with all my short-stopping during that short stop of time when the moon and stars didn't know yet my name. or where to find me to turn me into a woman. And later it paid off when I was a cocktail waitress, all grown up in a swanky hotel, and met Joe DiMaggio and asked him, "Whatever happened to Steve Bilko?" "You know who Steve Bilko is?" Joe asked, looking at my cleavage and fishnet stockings, these same ones, the very ones. "Yeah," I growled, boyish, and said, "Bilko taught me how to spit that day when the score was 1-0, bottom of the ninth, and he hit a grand slam." I don't know if Bilko ever did that, but Joe laughed and gave me his autograph. Thank you.
I have another maniacal interest in my life, and that is birds. And there's a guy, I'm sorry I've forgotten his name, but he wrote a poem that had a lineup with birds in it. And I have written two quick little poems. I want to include them. One is called The Birds of Baseball, Southern California, and one is called The Birds of Baseball, Costa Rica. So if there are any bird watchers here, this is going to be like a really inside thing for you. Okay. The Birds of Baseball, Southern California. Batting first and playing second, Black Phoebe. Playing right field and batting second, Scrub Jay. At first base, batting third, Black Skimmer. Batting in the cleanup spot and catching, California Towhee. Playing center field and batting fifth, Northern Mockingbird. Playing third and batting sixth, Roadrunner. Batting seventh and playing left field, Barn Swallow. Playing shortstop, batting in the eighth spot, American Kestrel. And on the mound, batting ninth, Northern Shrike. I wish I had pictures so you could see these folks. This is the Birds of Baseball, Costa Rica. Batting first, playing second base, Collared Forest Falcon. Have any of you been to Costa Rica? So you don't know these birds? Oh, too bad. Well, just have an imaginative experience then. Playing right and batting second, Violet Saberwing. At first base, batting third, Roseate Spoonbill. Batting in the cleanup spot, catching today, Masked Tatira. Playing center field, batting fifth, White-Chinned Swift. Playing third and batting sixth, Clay-Colored Robin, parentheses, the national bird of Costa Rica. Batting seventh and playing left field, Great Kiskadee. Playing shortstop, batting eighth, Roadside Hawk. And on the mound, batting nine, Peregrine Falcon. Okay, here's the last one. You know, Gertrude Stein was from Oakland, and I have worn these white shoes for Gertrude Stein and the Oakland A's. Remember when they first wore white shoes and just shocked everybody with how non-traditional it all was? Anyway, this is called Double Play. If Gertrude Stein had played second base, she would have said, "There's only there," and putting thoughts in order. The outfield is the place to dream, where slow moons fall out of the sky and rise clean over a green horizon. The infield is tense as blank paper and changeable as the cuneiform of cleats along the path. Stein would have loved the arc of arm from short to second and the spill of one white star out of a hand. Thank you.
October Song. This was the last song that Kurt Weill ever wrote, actually. You know, he asked me on his deathbed, he asked me to one day write the lyrics for this and perform it. And I said, "But what about Bertolt Brecht, you know, and Maxwell Anderson?" And he said, "No," he said, "Jerry, you're the man for it." You know? And so, and I didn't think to work up a medley from Damn Yankees or anything. I like to sing and dance at these things, but whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. No, but I'd throw my back out. I think I already did if I do that one. So, October song. For it's a long, long time from planting to harvest, and the days grow short with the strike threats of August, and the autumn weather turns the umpires gray, for they haven't got time for no stinking instant replay. And the days dwindle down to a precious few. The Angels swoon, the Dodgers bleed blue. But then for 7 games, we truly care. We get to love and hate George Steinbrenner. Thank you.
That's why we all showed up today. We could hear you warble some tunes, Jared. I know I'm doing the chucking and I shouldn't really hit, but they said, couldn't you just throw a knuckleball? And I said, okay. So before we say goodbye, I'm going to recount. This concerns the first Major League Baseball game I ever saw. The Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. Right up here at Brookside Park, actually. And 1951, Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox. And I call this Grounding Out in Southern California. It's got a superscription by Yogi Berra. We made too many wrong mistakes. Yogi. Grounding out in Southern California. Clouds descended over our hometown houses and swam all the way to Pasadena, putting a diaphanous coil around Brookside Park like choruses from a 1949 movie soundtrack. How long has it been since Chuck Connors caught a ripple, punching a long single to the right field corner, later got picked off as Nellie Fox mitts a relay from Al Zarilla, shovels it over to Chico Carrasquil, forcing it out, putting himself on a leash between second and third in the bottom of the ninth, but with Bob Rush hurling a 6-hitter, still the Cubbies clipped the White Sox about 2,000 miles from familiar turf. And it rained yesterday, the same way it did then, that springtime a long time ago, when we were begging for bubblegum on benign street corner universes, and all at the same time begging for the moon to spend a little more time with us, on nights free from the drag of discipline, free from the raspy, rule-ridden, demanding holler from a strange woman we called mother for some reason, and free to remain patrolling the outfield wall and begging for the chance to bag one in deep center, just like Handy Andy Pafko. So doesn't it seem a little bit weird now that we who somehow survived traumatic American disillusion since 1951 are still into some kind of preseason exhibition? And is there any chance at all that we could be called on account of rain? Thank you. Good night.